Welcome everyone, my name is John Megling, System Engineer for the Microsoft Azure Products of Tech Data, and today we're going to be taking a look at the reporting piece of the Azure Migrate tool. I have some other videos that we covered how to use and set up the Azure Migrate product, and they're listed here if you want to view those. But in this specific video, we're going to be taking a look at after you've gathered the information and you've got those machines in there and what those reports look like so you can get that information for your project. So with that, as always, let's go to the Azure portal, portal.azure.com, and log in. I'm already logged in. We're going to go to our Azure Migrate project, and we're going to start taking a look at the assessment piece here and some of the reporting that we can get. So we hit our discovered servers, and you can see we've got quite a few. We've been working on this project, but we're going to specifically be looking at 3 servers that I just added, which is a domain controller, a SQL server, and an application server web-based that uses a SQL server. So you can see these final 3 here, and you can see it says it requires the agent, and it gives us our steps to do that. The first thing we're going to need to do is configure the OMS workspace. You may not be familiar with OMS, don't worry about that. We're not going to be getting detail on OMS, but we go ahead and just create that workspace. We're going to give it a name. For what we're doing here, you don't really need an in-depth knowledge of OMS other than that Microsoft uses the OMS service to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish today. So we'll go ahead and give it a name. And a region, we get 3 regions, for OMS. We're going to pick East. Go ahead and configure that. And that won't take long at all, really. We can take a look, as always, at our deployment and see what's happening and the steps. But you'll see it'll just, yep, it's already done there. Our deployment's successful. And we can go to the resource group that's contained in. It's going to be in that resource group that that I created specifically for the Azure Migrate project. And we can always search for it too by going home into our Azure Migrate project. Look at those discovered servers, and we go down, and we're going to at this point download. We've got that there. You can see it set up, so we're going to go ahead and download the MMA agent. You notice it's for Windows and Linux. We're going to pick the Windows option. And it's just going to take a little bit there to download. We want to go ahead and download that and then put it someplace where we can share it. You can see the file there, MMA setup. And we're going to go ahead and copy that onto our machine that we're going to install that agent upon. You can roll this agent out other ways. For simplicity, I'm just showing it and actually installing it manually on the server. And it's a pretty simple wizard here. We're just going to install that agent. Make sure we always look at the license agreement. Take the defaults or put it somewhere else if you want to. And then we want to make sure we go ahead and choose, in our case, to connect the agent to Azure Log Analytics or OMS, that OMS workspace that we created. So we'll check that box. And if you have Operations Manager, there's an option for that too, so you can integrate that way. But then we're going to need the workspace ID and the workspace key in order to connect securely to that environment. So we can search for that in the Log Analytics workspace. And go ahead and pull that up, and I'll show you where that key is at. Under Advanced Settings. And there's our keys. Notice there's Windows servers, Linux servers, other items here too, but we're going to need these specific workspace IDs in this primary key. We'll go ahead and get those and get them populated here so we can get on with the wizard. We're commercial. A proxy we needed, we could do that too and set that up, but we don't in my case. So we see what's going on. We'll go ahead and install that agent. Doesn't take long at all. And you notice it's successful. That's what we want. We'll go ahead and finish that part. And we can go back to our Azure Migrate project. Take a look at our steps again that we're looking to get accomplished. And so we've done the MMA part, we've got our workspace created, now we need to get the dependency agent going. Again, we're going to download that, put that on a share, and then get it available to our server. We'll go ahead and run the dependency agent. And we're done with this phase. Next, we'll take a look at the actual Azure portal and see if we start noticing some difference in the portal. We can also get the key, the workspace ID and the workspace key right from the steps. I, again, sometimes know a little more, but you can get it right here also. So now we got our workspace configured, our agents installed, we should start seeing some differences here, and there you go. Takes about 15 minutes for this to start coming up. We can see that our machines look a little different. It doesn't say requires agent, and it says view dependencies. We can hit that and go ahead and take a quick look at that. We're going to cover this more a little bit here in just a few minutes, but I'll go ahead and give you a quick look at the dependency map. Pretty cool technology that we have in our Azure Migrate product. We'll go ahead and take a look at those servers. Remember our discovered servers piece right where we were. We're good. Let's go ahead and create an assessment. That's the first step in getting this reporting that we need. As part of that, we're going to need to create a group. We'll go ahead and create that group. You can use any name you want. Again, try to be descriptive. That way, if you have a lot of stuff in Azure, you can search or find things pretty quickly. And never hurts to put it, places where you know where it's at. And we're going to go ahead and find those machines that we need to pick to put in this group. I got quite a few, so I'm going to go down here and select my domain controller, the SQL Server, and the web server, and we're going to go ahead and create that assessment. It's going to fire off and do the assessment. And due to the magic of video, I'll go ahead and speed this along. We can see it's success. It doesn't take too long to do this, but you do want to make sure you assess your environment over a period of time you're comfortable with. That way you get accurate results. Remember, we're going to have to refresh. If you've watched my other two videos, this tool does require us to refresh it. If things don't show up, hit the refresh button and wait for a few seconds and you'll see, there we go. We've got 3 assessment groups now. There's our 3, the 2 that I already had done previously for Hyper-V and VMware. And now we've got our 3rd one here. Go ahead and expand that out so we can look at that. There's the one we just created. See, it's got 3 machines, and we give a confidence rating. We can click that if we want more information on what that confidence rating means from Microsoft. So they define, the stars and how confident they are in the assessment process and how accurately it measured what's going on. So here's our main screen that we were going to be looking at. Once we get our assessment, we can edit the properties of that assessment, and rerun it again if we'd like. You can see some of the things that were chosen, our region, reserved instance. You may not be using reserved instance, so you may not want to go with that. Pay as you go. In your case, you'll be using CSP, maybe. Discounts that may be available. You can change the uptime for the VNs. In our case, we want them, we're doing this analysis based on up all the time. Utilization, sizing criteria. I showed you the reserve instance, and hard drive types. We're going to set it. Ours is set to automatic, but we can force it to do other options. I went performance based. You saw some of the options there. In the performance history, you can manage that from here too. And you can actually even pick the VM series. I'm not going to show that, but you can actually dictate the series that you want it to use when it does its cost analysis and things like that. So you can see the readiness. We're good. All 3 of these machines are ready for Azure. We show some cost estimates and some storage cost estimates there. Let's go ahead and click into that readiness piece. So you can get more information. Again, everything may not come back good for you, so you may get some yellow or you maybe even some red here, and you may have to take some steps. So you can see Microsoft in their tools, they're suggesting for that in order for us to move and migrate. You can see server migration, which is what I showed in the other videos, and the Azure database migration service in case you want to maybe migrate that SQL server into SQL database, things like that. There's lots of options for SQL in Azure, as well as a virtual machine, managed instance, all part of the SQL, and other options also. We'll go ahead and click in the App server here, our web server, we can see it's ready. It gives us some cost analysis here. Tells us how many cores. CPU utilization's high, so we probably don't want one core. These were demo machines, so I just had one cores. Probably not the greatest idea to run a machine at 102% utilization. So those are the things we're going to want to look at that it's going to show us in these tools. So we can take a look at another one here in a second. Looking at the database, the SQL Server in this case. Again, cost estimate, CPU is I just noticed 101%. It's just got one core, so we don't want to bring the SQL Server into Azure utilizing one core at average 101% utilization. Our memory utilization is pretty good, but I obviously didn't change the processors when I created the virtual machine, so these machines are kind of struggling to run in my environment. So again, something great about the tool. It's pointing that out to us so we can make smart choices when we actually do the migration and move the products. And you can look at the cost estimates. I know a lot of folks are interested in cost. This is based on reserve instance, so it would look different if I hadn't chose reserve instance. You can drill down into the storage cost specifically. You can see it's based on standard HDD drives and the cost that it's computing. So again, always good things to look at when we're trying to decide, hey, is this right for us? Do we want to resize these, maybe make this different, and we can recalculate this to get those to show those differences. Again, this is the readiness tab, another way to get to the same thing, another way there to get to the cost details in case you don't like clicking and you like the menu. That's the thing with Microsoft, a lot of different ways to do things. We can actually export this assessment out, an Excel file. Now that we've got that downloaded, that Excel file, let's go ahead and open that up and take a look at what type of reporting the Azure Migrate service provides to us. This may look really familiar to you if you've ever used the Microsoft Assessment Planning tool, or what's known as the MAPS tool. So if you're familiar with that, this will be really easy. You can see Microsoft gives us some nice graphs to take a look at, and they give us a roll-up of what we've done, number of machines, things like that. Then they get specific. The All Assessed Machines tab is what I'm looking at right now. You can see it says we're ready for Azure. There are some issues in the data collection issues related to cores utilized out of range, which is a reference to that fact that I only had one CPU and I'm asking it to do quite a bit. Some size of the virtual machines, which helps us decide what this is going to look like cost-wise. I know I showed you cost, but this is an Excel sheet, so you can take this and provide this to your customer or do what you want to with it as part of a quote. You can see the operating systems, number of cores, memory, CPU usage, memory utilization, percentage-wise, storage, things like that, premium drives that it's talking about here, which is really what we should recommend for a web server and a database. IOPS, different write operations, disk performance metrics we can use to evaluate what we need to do. It helps us as technicians determine what's the best virtual machine size and type for what you're trying to do. We'll switch to the All Assess tab. You can see again our names of our machines, the disk. This is a disk specific tab, so we're going to get specific types of drives so we can map them to sizes, things like that. Pretty self-explanatory, this report. Source disk size, what we think it's going to use, target disk, so sometimes your source is bigger, you're not utilizing all that drive, so your target could be smaller. Again, reads, writes, IOPS, all that good information. And then a roll-up screen where the location for them are, the families of the VMs that we may be looking at, the service type, and the estimated cost. Something nice to use for you that you can modify to your liking when it comes to the reporting piece. So nice stuff. Maps tool like, so it gives you a way to still utilize the Azure Migrate service and get some nice reporting, some analytics you can take back in an Excel sheet and evaluate. So with that, we still take a look at the agent health piece in order just to get to where I want to be, which is the assessment group and our machines. So now that we're here, We can see our machines that were covered in the assessment. And we get some different things we can do: remove machines, refresh it, assess servers again. But we're going to take a look at the dependencies piece that I kind of gave you a sneak peek at first. A lot of people get excited by this. This is a representation of the environment that we're looking at. And you can see the dependencies that it's mapped between this domain controller, this this web server, and this SQL database that I have going on. And this is not a screen that you have to use. It may be something that you want to look at. It does get pretty granular, and it provides information. So I'm a believer in more information is good than less information. It does require the agent and the dependency agent. You can see when I click into that, it gives me an overview of the machine, its IP addresses, dependencies, number of dependencies, TCP/IP connections, memory, CPUs, some of the same stuff we've been looking at. Excuse me. And we can drill down in any of these things, and I'll show you a few of these along the way so we can take a look at those things just so you can see the differences. So these are things we definitely need to think about, especially as an architect or an engineer when we're moving these resources to Azure. Are we moving everything that's dependent? So in this case, if we move the domain controller and maybe the database, the web server might have some issues. And you can size it in and out as I just showed you there. So there's some cute kind of stuff you can do with this graph. Look at the client information if we want to. There's our domain controller. And if you're thinking this is complex, I'll show you in a second how you can expand this out and make it even more complex looking. And then this is the part I was talking about where we can expand this out or collapse it. In our case, we're going to expand this on out. Maybe, there we go. I finally did it. And you can see it shows all the dependencies in a very granular methodology. So again, very cool graphics, things that make Azure Migrate really a good product. And as you can see, there's a ton of just different metrics that you can get to evaluate so that you can complete your journey from on-premise to the cloud and do it in an efficient, successful manner. Well, this is going to wrap up our last video in the series of videos on the Azure Migrate product in the Azure portal. Today we didn't cover the actual setup the Azure Migrate in the portal and on-premise. That's 2 other videos that I'll list here for you so you can reference. But today we talked mostly about the reporting and the analysis that you get before you actually do your migration product into Azure. As always, thanks for watching.